this is Patrick from Sasquatch in the Wild, and I forgot to do something. As you can see, I got a drum right next to me. Gotta cover up something here. So, this has to do with the next video. And the conga that I brought in, it's too big for the video camera to show. And I don't think you need to see my messy room anyway. This has to do with a big event that happened, and it affected me and changed the way I saw things. Opened my eyes to a totally different world. Totally different. This happened back in 2016. Now, there were two events that were kind of like almost back to back. The first event showed me a whole lot of things. The second time around, I discovered some things. I myself and Jeff Yellick found something that was bizarre, but that's a different story. We'll do many videos at this location. Jeff Yellick actually has a lot to do with this, and he's one of the founding people now at SIR. He's kind of a leader at SIR. Mike has kind of stepped back. That's what it seems like anyway. And Scott's he's still there. He's still there. He still talks to Jeff a lot, and he talks to Jim a lot. And he and I will talk once in a while. More than once in a while, I guess. But Jeff still does a whole lot of things for SIR. And he's always looking for stuff. He's always looking for evidence. But this night concerns him. And he's worried that I'm going to talk about where this location is. And I'm not. So there was an event that happened where SIR was invited to. And Mike and Jeff Yellick, and I think Tony even talked as well. And I won't get into Tony at all because he's kind of irrelevant to this whole story. But he was in my tent. The first night, it was kind of an odd scenario. Now, I'm not going to go into the story yet because I'm putting the pieces and parts back together, because this was one of the longest nights of my life. I was put through the ringer. A lot of times when you deal with Sasquatch, they will put you through the ringer, and it's crazy. They will be at you nonstop. And it's not like, oh, well, I had an experience. This thing is, the way that they work it will test you. There's been a lot of times that we go out to this location and we find a tent sitting there in a campsite, and there's nobody around. And I don't mean that they just left their tent. They left it. It's gone. Like, they're gone. They left everything. You can hear the reverb coming off my drum that's right here. But they left their tent behind. Something spooked them hard enough that they got out. They said, no more, I'm done. I'm getting out of this place as fast as possible. And they got out. And we found, and the first 2 years we were there, we found 2 tents. And it was pretty insane. It's pretty funny, but it's pretty insane. I've had experiences at that location where the tent is. Jim and I and Darla went out there, and we stayed at that same spot. Jim went and put his tent way down, probably about, I would say close to about 75 yards from where I was placed. And I had an interaction with a Sasquatch. Darla was sleeping across from me. I was in my cot, she was in hers, and there was a lot of interaction between Sasquatch and me. And I did not tell Darla about it. I didn't tell her at all. And because I didn't want her to be awake and be spooked. I wanted her to sleep. And that's what, she slept right through most of it. She was unaware of anything happening there until I told her after the fact that there was something going on. And that will be a fun story to talk about. but this doesn't concern that one either. See, there's many stories to this place. But the first one, there was a good group. There was a good grouping of people there. I think there was a total of, I want to say, maybe 12 people. I drew a picture, and I kind of made fun of Sir, and I drew everybody, what if we were Sasquatches? And I drew a picture, and I'll put that picture up here somewhere. And it's kind of a cartoon piece on how I see things. Now, on my Redbubble account, I have that picture up. And I designed it for t-shirts, and I designed it for bedding and whatever else you can throw this thing onto. I designed it for it. I designed it just because it's fun. And I tend to draw pictures of people that I know, and either it's a place that I work at or whatever. But this place really, it changes you. And you either will be dedicated into Bigfooting or you won't be. Now, not everybody's going to have the same experience. Janice had her specific experiences. She actually had a series of events that happened at Robin's thing that I didn't talk about. And I kind of heard it. But I was like, Janice, this is I'm talking about my perspective, not your perspective, not everybody else's perspective, my perspective. And this place, you'll pull your hair out. It'll if they come down and they visit, it's game on. And it's like, you better be prepared. A lot of people will sit there and they'll hammer on me. They'll say, well, you've never experienced this, man. Yeah, I have. You've never seen these things. Oh, yes, I have. And I've seen them up close. I've been about 5 inches from an infant. I've been 10 inches from an adult. I've seen them walk by my tent. And at this location, this is where I got to see the most of them. I got to see the gambit of what happens. They don't all look the same. They don't. There's, in Colorado, I have said this a few times before, that I've seen 6 different types of Sasquatches. 6. Over 35 encounters since 2015. And the oddities about them, it's crazy. But I don't look at them the same way as everybody else. I don't go, oh, that's great. I'm not looking at them like, oh boy. And I'm looking at them like, who's this guy? All right, who's this? Who's this girl? Because I'm seeing them in a different way. I don't look at them like they're a monster. I don't look at them like they're a primate, even though they look like a primate. Some of them do. I'm not saying all of them do, but some of them do look like primates. The very first one, Big Man, he looked like a gorilla. He had the body shape, form of a gorilla. And I don't care what these knuckleheads on YouTube say or on Facebook. They don't have any clue. They're basing what they're seeing off of Patty. That's it. I've seen ones that look like chimpanzees, and I've watched them run by, and I was like, that's a chimp. It vocalized, and I said, that's a chimp. Everything that it did read, and what I saw, chimpanzee in the United States. A chimp in the United States. Well, that's possible. But they're smart. They're smarter than what you think. So then there's the orangutans. Now, the orangutans are big and bulky. They're big. They can get really big, and they can get really bulky. The female that I saw at that same location that I'll talk about, she's big. She's seriously large. And at first I was like, when I was looking at her through my window of my tent, and we had doused the fire. And all the people that were there at that night, I told Mike and Scott and Trenton and the Elks I was going to stay one more night. And something told me to stay one more night. In my head, I was told, stay one more night. And I stayed one more night. And because of this, I got some crazy interaction. But I have seen chimpanzees, I have seen the orangutans, I've seen the gorillas, and then you got the other ones. You have the ones that look like almost like a giant Indian, a very large, tall individual that's walking around in the woods. They're big. They're not like 15, 20 feet tall. They are the maximum I'm pretty much assuming that they're hitting is about 12 feet. And that's just 2 times, like I stand 5 feet 10 and 3/4 inches tall. That's like two of me on top of each other. Is that doable? Absolutely. Sure, why not? Is there enough food for them in around Colorado? Absolutely. But they don't just strictly eat meat. You can't look at them and go, they eat meat only. No, they don't. They do eat plants, and we've got proof of that because of something I discovered the second time at that spot. They do eat crustaceans. Now, if you look at your rivers, no matter where you live, if you go down to your local river and you push down in the sand, and if you see like little bubbles coming up, if you dig your hand down into that sand, you're going to find a mollusk. You're going to find a clam, and the clams will range anywhere from small to probably about that size, which is about 4 inches across. That's a meal. You grab 4 or 5 of those suckers up, and you're good. You're golden. You're going to have a decent meal there. There's crayfish. There's fish. There's fowl. The birds and stuff that are flying around. You've got deer. You've got moose. You've got elk. You've got antelope. Depending where you're hunting or what you're hunting, you've got food sources. You're not limited to a specific type of food source. Nobody knows what they eat all the time. Nobody knows because we can't observe them enough to go, well, this is what they're eating. Well, this is where they're eating it at. Well, that's fine. You can target where they're probably going to eat. But it's hard to target that because you have to study them 24/7, 7 days a week, and you have to be at that spot all the time. Not too many people have that option. Not too many people have that opportunity. I don't. I can go out there when I have the opportunity to go out there, and I hang out and either hike around or drive around or camp in those spots. And that spot is one of my favorites because I've had so much interaction there. There's the other ones that look like Cousin It off of the Addams Family. You have ones that look like Chewbacca. And they look like Chewbacca. It's weird. And then if you add Patty into that, then that'd be, 7? And then if you looked at Yelks' one, I think it's the same one that I've seen, that would still be part of the 7 setup. But then Leah Marshall has a Sasquatch that she photographed that is weird. And that'd be number 8. But I haven't seen that one in person, but she has. So no matter how you look at things, it's going to be different for every researcher out there. You're not going to have the same experiences that I had. It just doesn't work that way. So don't be, Patrick did it like this, and this is how it's done. No, after my first event with Big Man, things changed for me. Doors opened up, and I started having more and more and more experiences. Mike took me to different locations, and I had more and more and more and more experiences because the more places he took me to, it was like I'd been tagged, and for whatever reason, they come out of their woodwork to see who I am or to experience me. I've had them come up to my car and put a handprint on my car twice on the same camping trip. And Mike got to see the different handprints. He was a witness to it, and I have photographs of that. There are, at that spot, at the spot that I'm going to talk about on Sunday, that location is deep in the woods in Colorado. I'm not going to go into, like I said, I'm not going to talk about where it's at. I will say it takes about 7 hours to get there. Now, I could be exaggerating, and I'm not going to tell you if I am or I'm not. So it's hit and miss. I have been to places across the state, and I've seen some crazy crap over there too, where they come in single file, and you can hear all the dogs in the background barking, carrying on, because these guys are coming in from one valley and into this state park. And I've seen 4 juveniles working on what I think was a rabbit. That they caught it and they were just eating parts and pieces of it right there on the spot. I thought at first when I was looking at them, I was looking at 4 kids messing around in the dark. And I walked up and said, "What are you guys doing?" And then they all turned and looked at me and they had all glowing eyes. I was like, "You keep doing what you're doing." And I walked away. I was like, "Nope, I'm not going to deal with these guys. I'm not going to interact with them if they're eating something. It's not my place." But I've had at the location that I'm going to talk about, I've had where I've shared blueberries. And on a short, I kind of talked about it. I kind of touched base on this a little bit. And that short, I might put into this video a little bit. There'll be a lot of photographs in this video. And I think I'll have a lot of videos. So this series at this location might be pretty long. Because there is a lot of sections to this. And this is the same location where I learned a greet, how I greet them now. And if I see them, I give the greet, and that greet is reciprocated, which is cool. That means there's a greet that I'll do when I see them. And I don't really have to say anything. I just do this, it's like a hand gesture. And they respond with the same hand gesture. And I think it means friend. And at that point, it's all good. There's no threat from my part. There's no threat from their part. We're golden. The same location, I heard a cadence. And I just got done recording the cadence that I heard on my conga. And I used my hand to knock on the side of the drum. And I used the top of my hand to make the sound on top, which is a more bassier sound, because I heard 2 different things being played out on that night. And at that location, after everything was done, when I stepped out of the tent, the cadence did not change for me. It changed for Mike. It changed for the Alexes. It did not, and Trenton and Scott, but it did not change for me. And for that tells me that I was accepted into the group. And because when I stepped out, I also had a 4th thing. The 4th thing was I actually had what's that called? Bladder infection, because of what I went through that night. It wasn't because of them per se, but I was being told I could not go outside. Even though Mike, Trent, and Scott, and the Alexes, I think, all went outside to do their business, I was told to stay inside and wait. The very next day when I told Mike about how much I was hurting, he's like, "Dude, you should have just gone out." I said, "You told me not to," so I didn't. And the pain just right through the roof. When I finally was able to get out of the tent, I just about cried. I may have cried because the pain that was happening right then and there. And they got to see me crying because of the pain I was going through. That was an eye-opening experience. When I left there, I went 4 different directions. I went one direction. I greeted them. I saw them backing off, and I said, "Look, I'm not going to follow you. This was fun. I'll see you again." And I did that 4 times, 4 different directions. My name is Patrick, and this is Sasquatch in the Wild. I hope you're enjoying the journey, and I'll see you on Sunday, which will talk about the beginning of that weekend.